My dear friend, we must begin our conversation today in a place where few dare to linger, in the dark chamber of the psyche where lust dwells, not as a simple appetite, but as a force of tremendous power, a dragon guarding the threshold between our civilized persona and the ancient instinctual depths. You have come seeking liberation from this force, but I must tell you something that may surprise you. Lust itself is not your enemy. No, the enemy is your relationship to it, the unconsciousness, the compulsion, the possession by an energy you have never truly faced. What we call lust is merely the surface manifestation of something far deeper. It is libido, the life force itself, but in its most primitive, undifferentiated state. When you speak of being destroyed by lust, what you are really describing is the experience of being overtaken by a part of yourself that you have refused to integrate, a shadow that has grown monstrous precisely because you have turned away from it. The shadow, you see, does not merely contain our so-called evil impulses. It contains tremendous energy, creativity, vitality, everything we have deemed unacceptable and cast into darkness. And like all neglected things, it does not simply disappear. It waits, it grows, and eventually, it erupts. The man who says, "I must overcome lust," without understanding this principle, is like someone trying to dam a river with his bare hands. The water will find its way through, perhaps more violently than before. What is needed is not suppression, but transformation, not denial, but integration. The medieval alchemists, those wise symbolists of the inner life, spoke of base metals being transformed into gold through a process they called the opus. They were not speaking of literal metals, of course, but of the soul itself, and particularly of the transformation of our most primitive energies into something refined, something luminous. Lust, in this alchemical sense, is prima materia, the raw, chaotic substance with which the work begins. It is not something to be destroyed, but something to be worked with, heated in the vessel of consciousness until it reveals its hidden nature. You see, sexual desire is one of the most powerful manifestations of the archetypal force of union, the drive toward wholeness, toward the sacred marriage of opposites that lies at the heart of individuation itself. But when this energy remains purely biological, purely compulsive, it traps us in an endless cycle of tension and release, hunger and satiation that ultimately leads nowhere. The crucial question is not, how do I stop feeling this? But rather, what is this energy truly seeking? For beneath the surface, craving lies a deeper longing, the soul's yearning for completion, for meaning, for transcendence. When lust possesses you, you are not truly desiring another person. You are desiring wholeness. You are reaching unconsciously toward the anima or animus, the contrasexual other within yourself that you have not yet integrated. The external object of desire becomes a projection screen for this inner incompleteness. This is why conquest never satisfies. This is why the addiction deepens rather than resolves. You are seeking outside what can only be found within. Now, I know what you are thinking. This sounds like philosophy, but what do I do when the urge overwhelms me? And this is precisely the point where most people become frustrated with depth psychology. They want a technique, a method, a quick solution. But the psyche does not yield to force. What I propose instead is something more difficult and more rewarding: conscious suffering. When the wave of lust rises within you, do not flee from it, and do not indulge it. Instead, hold it, contain it. Observe it as you would observe a fascinating and dangerous animal. This is not suppression. Suppression is unconscious, driven by fear and shame. This is conscious containment, driven by curiosity and courage. You create what the alchemists called the vase, the sealed vessel, within which transformation can occur. As you hold this energy in consciousness, you will begin to notice something remarkable. the lust begins to reveal itself as something more than mere physical appetite. You may discover rage beneath it, old anger that has nowhere to go. You may discover fear, terror of intimacy, of vulnerability, of your own power. You may discover grief, the sorrow of disconnection, the pain of your own unlived life. The energy that you called lust is revealed as a messenger, bringing news from the unconscious about what remains unintegrated, what remains unlived within you. And as you listen to this message, as you allow these deeper feelings to rise into consciousness, something extraordinary happens. The compulsive quality begins to fade. This is not because you have killed the desire, but because you have understood it. The energy has been released from its primitive form and can now flow into other channels, into creativity, into genuine relationship, into work that matters, into the great task of becoming who you truly are. In the great myths and fairy tales that encode the wisdom of the collective unconscious, there is always a moment where the hero must face not an external dragon, but an internal one. The treasure that the dragon guards is not gold or a princess. It is consciousness itself. It is the possibility of becoming whole. What lust guards, in its own strange way, is the tremendous power of eros, not merely sexual love, but the principle of relatedness, of connection, of finding meaning through relationship. But this eros must be differentiated, refined, brought into consciousness. The transformation I am describing is what the alchemists called the conjunctio, the sacred marriage, not between you and another person, but between the conscious and unconscious aspects of your own psyche. It is the integration of the masculine and feminine principles within, the reconciliation of spirit and instinct, of heaven and earth. When this inner marriage begins to occur, your relationship to desire changes fundamentally. You are no longer driven by it, possessed by it, identified with it, nor have you rejected it or denied it. Instead, you have entered into a conscious relationship with this energy. It becomes a servant of your wholeness rather than a tyrant that enslaves you. This is what I mean by the transformation of lust, not its elimination, but its evolution. The same energy that once compelled you toward unconscious gratification now becomes available for creative work, for deep relationship, for the pursuit of meaning, for the gradual realization of the self, that central archetype of wholeness toward which all individuation moves. You begin to experience what the mystics knew, that all desire, at its root, is the soul's longing for union with the divine ground of being. Lust, in its primitive form, is a distorted, concretized version of this cosmic yearning. As it transforms, it reveals its true nature. I must tell you honestly, this is not a work that is ever truly finished. The integration of the shadow, the transformation of instinct, the journey of individuation, these are lifelong processes. There will be moments of clarity and moments of confusion. There will be victories and defeats. This is the nature of the psyche. But something does change, fundamentally and irreversibly, when you begin this work consciously. You are no longer at war with yourself. You are no longer split between the person you pretend to be and the one you fear you are. You begin to experience yourself as a whole. Contradictory, yes, but whole. Imperfect, certainly, but real. The energy you once called lust and experienced as destructive becomes integrated into the totality of your being. It no longer erupts from the unconscious to possess you, because you have given it a place, a function, a meaning within the conscious economy of your psyche. And here is the great secret that few understand. When you stop running from your own instinctual nature, when you face it and integrate it, you do not become more animalistic. You become more human. You become more yourself. The energy that was trapped in compulsion becomes available for genuine love, for creative work, for the realization of your unique destiny. This is the paradox at the heart of the individuation process. By descending into the darkness, we find the light. By accepting what we are, we become what we might be. By integrating the shadow, we discover the self. So, I leave you with this thought, my friend. The habit that destroys lust is not a habit at all, in the ordinary sense. It is not a technique or a practice that you can master in seconds or days. It is a fundamental reorientation of consciousness, a decision to face yourself completely, to integrate what you have rejected, to transform what you have feared. It is the choice to undertake the hero's journey, not in the outer world, but in the far more dangerous and rewarding landscape of your own soul. And though the path is long and difficult, there is no other way to freedom. There is no other way to wholeness. There is no other way home.